So I wanted to talk about something that I had talked about before. And I remember a couple years ago, I made a video talking about uh, protesting and the problems that I had with it. But I kind of wanted to revisit that a little bit and maybe unpack a little more and re-clarify my stance a little bit. I was driving around town, I think a week or two ago, and I saw a bunch of, I think it was on a Saturday or something like that, and there were a bunch of people protesting in the middle of town, and it's whatever, people can do it, and you kind of just eye roll and keep driving, right? But first of all, I wanted to say that I think that protesting, you should be allowed to do it. This isn't an argument against anybody's right to protest. This isn't an argument against the concept of protesting in terms of how it applies to your rights as an individual, but more so just an observation based on utility. And I feel like that I take a more utilitarian view on this as opposed to just saying, well, it's the rights. And, again, freedom of speech, go out and protest, do whatever you want. Hey, it's a free country. Go out, and if you that's what you want to spend your Saturdays doing, then go for it. But I remember one of my biggest things was, first of all, just being concerned. If you're going to go out and protest, here's what you have to consider. Is first of all, you need to consider the safety portion of it. And if you're going out with a bunch of people that you don't know, then you have no idea what their intentions are. You don't know who these people are. You don't know what they're capable of. You don't know their intentions. You're going to say, "Hey, we're going to go out and protest this specific thing." You don't know what their intentions are. Their intentions can be totally different, and things have a way of escalating and getting out of control. And to me, the simplest way of removing all of the unknown factors is just removing yourself from the situation completely. And in a lot of cases, when you look back throughout the BLM riots and protests, when you look at what happened on January 6th a number of years back, I think in in some cases, the people that got caught up in all of those things, the people who ended up breaking the law and committing crimes, I honestly think that there's probably a good portion of them that went out and they had no intention of doing those things. Like when those people woke up on January 6th, some of them, I don't think that they would have imagined themselves walking through the Capitol building later on in the day. I don't think that, that doesn't mean that they should not, that doesn't mean they should get away with it. That doesn't mean they still didn't do something wrong or shouldn't be punished for it. But I'm just saying that the intentions of people, I think things get a little bit out of control. I think things can go crazy when you're in a large group of people, especially a large group of people that you are unfamiliar with. Like, you don't know what people are planning. They could actually, if you're going and you're like an innocent bystander and you're just trying to protest, well, the people that are with you, they could have completely opposite intentions. They could be intending to do something that is not good or dangerous. And when I weigh the usefulness of protesting against what could potentially happen, it's just not worth it to me. I'm not interested in it. It does not grab my attention. I'm not interested in doing it. I'm not even interested in listening to people protest about anything. That is not how I consume content. That is not the source of my content, is people protesting in the middle of the street. And I have a real problem, and this goes for both sides, by the way. I'm not just saying this about the left. I'm not just saying this about the climate activists and the ones that are seem to be a little bit more unhinged. This goes for the right as well. If somebody were to ask me, "Hey, you want to go out and you want to protest a pro-life stance?" While I agree with a pro-life stance and I am a pro-life person, somebody asked me to go out and protest and be part of some pro-life march on a Saturday when it's blasting hot outside, I would probably tell them no. I would probably tell them no. Like I said, I don't have any interest in going out and spending my time and waving around some generic sign with some generic message on it to let people know where I stand on a particular issue. I just don't care. Spreading spreading what you believe in that way is not interesting to me. And I don't even think it's particular I don't think it's potent or useful really, because let's say I was going to go out and I was going to protest in favor of a pro-life stance. Well, would it not be better, or if you just want to solve the problem or help solve the problem directly, I would rather write a check to some of these various organizations that have been set up to support struggling families or to support struggling mothers, and give them money, donate my money, so that way if that money's actually working actively to solve the problem as we speak. Like what it's like, I'm pro-life. It's like, okay, saying it does just simply saying it out in the middle of the street does not necessarily change anything. And the reason I don't think it changes anything for the most part is because I don't think anybody's mind is truly changed in the moment of protesting, regardless of what side you're on. If I'm on the right and I'm listening to some leftist protest, I have never said to myself, oh, look, this person is protesting this, or look how emotional they are, or look how dedicated they are. They must be right, or they must be in tune with something that I am not in tune with. I have never said that. And I don't think very many people say that. The times that my mind has truly been changed on a particular topic, the times that my mind or somebody has said something that causes me to actually seriously think about the issue at hand is usually in the form of YouTube, but it's not a bunch of people screaming at each other. It's not about a bunch of protesters. It's usually two people or a small group of people sitting down and having a profitable discussion about that particular issue. That is what speaks to me, because it's not chanting, it's not screaming, it's not yelling, it's not an out of control mob. It's a group of people that are actually there trying to solve a problem or trying to convince people of a particular way of thinking. And the times that I have sat back and actually, kind of scratched my head about some things, like, they're actually kind of right about that. They're actually things are not exactly as I imagine them to be. And those intellectual discussions, in my opinion, are far more profitable than going out and protesting and screaming at somebody on the other side of the street, or have somebody on the other side of the street screaming at you. The, people's minds are not changed in that moment. I think the realm of protesting is more so for people who have already made up their minds about everything. They've already made up their minds. There is no discussion, there is no debate, there is no nothing. There is just simply marching and screaming and yelling and getting nothing done, essentially. And so I just don't think that it's not honestly, I don't think it's worth my time. In the vast majority, I don't want to say that I would never, under any circumstances, ever protest anything in history, of in the history of my life, but I'm just saying generally, probably like 99, 98% of the time, you are not, under 99% of circumstances, you're not going to find me protesting anything. Because I'd much rather listen to somebody, two people who are much smarter than me, sit down and have a discussion about X, about this, about a particular topic, than I would go out and protest. And I'd much rather do this. Like, this is far more interesting to me. Me actually going into detail about what I believe and why I believe it, and my thoughts on a topic, explaining that in a greater amount of depth is more interesting than going out and screaming some, 5-word slogan that means nothing. And ultimately, I think a lot of these protests just mean nothing. And and it just doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me in terms of going out and doing it. Doesn't matter to me in terms of being a consumer of that kind of content. Not interested. And one really weird thing that I would going back to the slogans thing actually is I think a lot of times, and I don't want to just paint with a broad brush and say this is everybody who protests, but I would say that a lot of the people that go out and protest, they just want to hide amongst the crowd. And I think I talked about this the last time I was talking about protesting, but they just want to hide amongst the crowd. They don't want to, they don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to have a meaningful discussion. And honestly, there'd probably be quite a few of them if you pulled them out of the crowd and you set them in front of a microphone and said, "I want you to talk about this thing, the thing that you're protesting, the thing that you're so passionate about, the thing that you're so emotional about. I want you to talk about that thing for 5 minutes. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm not going to try and fact check you. I'm not going to try and debate you or anything like that. You have 5 minutes just to give me content on this thing that you are so concerned about." And most of them probably couldn't do it. A lot of them probably couldn't do it. And I'm not saying that they're stupid or they're idiots or anything like that, but I'm just saying that it just seems like that it's hollow in terms of content. It's hollow in terms of information. It's hollow. You don't even really know what these people believe you're just going off of what they're saying, what they're chanting, or what their sign says. And so it's not particularly useful. And one thing that's really weird to me, and I feel like I see more and more of this, is that the amount of old people that are out protesting is very odd to me. The amount of elderly people that are like 60, 65, or they're in their 50s or 70s that are out protesting, I'm like half in shock by it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I can kind of understand, like, you're a young person and you go to college and the college has a certain viewpoint, and people are always talking about getting brainwashed at college. I can understand a young person getting caught up in all of that stuff and going out and protesting and being emotional and all these different things. I can halfway understand that. I don't agree with it, but I halfway understand it. But these are older people that have lived a long life. They're like 60, 65 years old. What are you doing out there? Do you not have anything else substantial going on in your life? I hope and pray. And I don't just say hope and pray for the sake of saying it. I'm serious. When I think about my life in the future, when I say that I'm praying, I'm I hope and pray that I live a life that is so fulfilling that I don't feel like I have to go out and protest. I hope my life is full of children, full of grandchildren, full of hobbies, full of things to do, whatever it is. I hope that my life is full to the point where I don't think I don't feel like I need to go out and shout at people. I don't need to go out and, make myself seen and let people know where I stand. Maybe I don't know if I'll still be making videos when I'm 60, 65 years old. That would be more profitable than protesting, but I don't know if I'm going to be doing that. There's a part of me that kind of hopes that when I think about my life now, it's like, hey, uh, I'm in my later 20s, and right now it's like I'm grinding, I'm building, we're building a home, building family, building, we're building all of these different things, and now is the time in my life where I'm working, right? I'm working on a lot of different things, and someday I hope all of that work pays off to the point where I have things going on in my life, positive things going on in my life, and then that I can lay some of that stuff off to the side. Maybe I can lay the videos off to the side and being so concerned about politics and being concerned about like money and stuff like that. I just hope that my life is fulfilled enough that I don't feel like I have to go out and do these things. And the old people going out to protest, especially a specific issue like abortion, you see some of these 60-year-old women out here and their 30-year-old daughter is with them, and they're like, "Ma'am, why are you out here today?" And the old woman's just like, "Well, I just want to make sure that my daughter can grow up in a country that has rights that weren't available to me." back when I was her age, and I wish, you know, and the basically it's like, so you wish you could have gone back and killed your daughter is basically what you're saying? You're protesting, you wish back whenever you were a young person or a young adult, you had the same kind of access to abortion that you're fighting for your daughter to have now, is what you're saying. And so basically it's like, man, I wish I could have gone back and killed my child if I had the opportunity. And the daughter sitting there like, yeah, I wish she could too. It's just like, what? What are we talking about here? What are we even this is insane. This is legitimately insane. And I don't want to be around those people. I just don't. I don't want to be around just the stupidity and the it's a waste of time. I just don't want to be around. And and with the elderly people, and I say this not necessarily in a way to roast people or to talk down to people, but I think people just have very hollow lives. And again, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that even really in a like looking down on them. I just think that people, their lives are so empty and hollow that they feel like they're just ready to latch on to anything that gives them a feeling of relevance and that keeps them busy. Like they're just desperately searching and reaching for anything that will take up their time. And I hope my life is not like that. I don't want my life to be like that, regardless of what age I am. And I feel, and I say that in I say that in a compassionate manner because I do feel bad for those people. Because in my mind, my initial thought is, "Well, you're like 65 years old. Why aren't you spending time with your kids? I'm sure your kids have problems. I'm sure your grandkids have problems. Would you not be rather be pulling for them? Would you not rather be working for them or helping them in some way, helping them make it through life? Would you not rather be spending time with them? I'm sure you guys could find something to do that's more profitable than this. Surely spending time with your grandchildren is more profitable than this." And people are just empty and they are reaching and grabbing for the next thing, and whatever's going to take up their attention, whatever's going to take up their time, whatever's going to make them feel like they have some kind of power, they're just going to latch on to it. And in the case of protesting, I just don't think it's a profitable aspiration. And and you might say, well, Travis, protesting has played a significant part in the history of our country. And I'm like, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree that positive movements that we have seen throughout history have been spearheaded by large protests. But I think it's a little bit different now in the social media era where everybody has a cell phone and everybody can have an opinion about anything. And so if everybody can have an opinion, I can comment on I can the most famous person in the world, if they make a political statement, I can go on social media and respond to that statement. Now, they don't know who I am and they're probably just like, "Oh, some rando trashing me or whatever." But you actually can put yourself out there on an individual level with social media. And so, you know, you don't need to go sit out in the middle of the road. You don't need to go throw paint on some famous work of art. What does that solve? Nothing. It solves absolutely nothing. And in a social media era where everybody can communicate with everybody essentially in a way, why do we need to get a gigantic group of people together? And I think, you know, back in like the 50s and 60s and different periods of time where there were also protests, I think that that was a way of gaining national attention. That was a way of gaining media attention. When a large group of people got together, they didn't have cell phones. So it's not like that they can get their viewpoint out there on their own independently. So they get a huge group of people together and they're all fighting on one side of the political aisle for on this specific topic. It meant something. You know, it meant to have a large group of people gathered together to fight against whatever they were fighting against. And so that's how they gained national attention. That's how they ended up on the news, and that's how they ended up changing people's minds about things. But now, like, you have with your phones, you can make your own videos, you can post your own opinions, you can do all the research at home on your own. You don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to have a group of people together. I just think that there are better ways to spend your time. In 2025, there are better ways to spend your time than protesting. And and I think when I was out and I saw these protesters on the side of the road, I was on my way I was on my way to the gym. And I'm like, I would much rather be dying on a treadmill than I would be out protesting whatever it is they were protesting. I would much rather be suffering in the gym than I would protesting out in public, because I think it's important. And I don't know if you can consider it, you think about this philosophy, work on yourself and take care of your own life. And then I think that's partially, not in the exact words, but it is somewhat of a biblical principle. It's where you take care of your own self, take care of your own life. And then if your own life is taken care of, then maybe you can expand out a little bit and try and change the community or the world or whatever it is that you're concerned about. And so I would much rather be at the gym. I would much rather be working and making money and pushing to be financially stable, taking care of my family, than I would be protesting. I feel like that's my responsibility as a man. And so if you're an adult man and you have a family and you're not in good shape, or you're not doing as well financially as you need to be, then you shouldn't be out protesting. You should be working and making money to help provide for your family. You should be out there pulling for those who depend on you. You should be out working and trying to make money so their lives are better. That is your responsibility as a man. And you should not be out protesting all these different things. And that's really one of the things that bugs me, is that some of these people, they're protesting all of these things. They think that they can change climate change. They think that they can change, they hate Trump, no kings. They think that they have control and power over all of these different things when their own lives are a complete catastrophe. Their own lives are a mess. And so why would I listen to that person about anything? Why would I listen to them? And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm some great speaker, or I'm in the best shape, or I'm as financially well off as I want to be, but I'm certainly not going to sacrifice those things in order to go out and protest. I have responsibilities. I have other things that need my attention. And I don't think people's priorities are in the right place. And they might say, well, do you even see what's happening? They're always concerned about Trump, and they're protesting about Trump. It's like, look, I didn't support Biden, right? You didn't see me protesting on a bridge on the weekends when I had my day off. Why? It's because I've got other things I need to take care of. You know what? Life goes on, and I have responsibilities, I have priorities, I have other things I need to take care of. And yeah, I just think that, again, especially for the men, you've got a family, you've got kids. What are you doing? What are you doing out on your Saturday or in the middle of the week on a work day? What are you doing protesting? You should be out working. You should be out providing. You should be out pulling for your family. That's what you should be doing. And so when you stack all of it up, protesting, you don't know what people's intentions are. It can get out of control. You could get hurt. You could find yourself in a situation where you're doing something you never intended to do. Okay, it doesn't change anybody's mind. People's minds are already made up in the protesting atmosphere. It doesn't do, there's more utility in simply donating your money to certain causes than it is protesting for certain causes. It takes away from your priorities, it takes away from your responsibilities. And when you stack all of that up, and weigh it against how much good it actually does, protesting just seems kind of useless to me. And the more that and honestly, the more that I get involved in politics and the more I listen to political discussions, and when you realize that you're listening to people have profitable discussions, when you're listening to people actually make good points in debate, and you're reading and you're doing research and you're gaining information and you're trying to educate yourself, you realize that this is far better. It is far better than going out and protesting something. And it's far more profitable to you on an individual level. And you should be taking care of yourself first on an individual level before you try and lecture everybody around you about the large global scale issues that you're trying to protest against.